Have we been walking right past Jesus without recognizing him? Let's find Jesus. Let's look at the judgment of the nations in Matthew 25. A fellow pastor helped after a national disaster. Some crews repaired church buildings, packed up and left. A woeful example. His crew stayed to repair people's lives, not just buildings. Matthew 25 prioritizes the needy over buildings. The street is also a holy place, where Christians truly live the gospel. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then he'll sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he'll separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he'll set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." The judgment seat is here called the throne of his glory. It's the judgment of all the nations, not just the church. The judgment is how all nations handled human suffering. Do we see suffering people as brothers and sisters, like Jesus does? Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world. Sheep are gentle and quiet. Goats are not as easily herded. They stink and bully the sheep. They're not predators, so may flock with the sheep for separation later. That's what Jesus will do at the judgment. So selfish and stinking people can stay in the church until then. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Do we see Jesus in the poor and needy? The suffering of Jesus in the hungry and thirsty? Being rejected as a stranger and naked on the cross? Do we see Jesus in the suffering, anxiety, pain, rejection, loneliness, and depression of a prisoner? Jesus suffers with all who suffer. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, "Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me." We're not saved by good works, but for good works. A living faith is accompanied by good works. Dead faith is just a show, not accompanied by good works. Faith that saves shows love to our neighbor. Then he'll also say to those on the left hand, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger and you didn't take me in. Naked and you didn't clothe me. Sick and in prison and you didn't visit me." Jesus is with us always. We sit with him in heavenly places. Jesus came to the poor and needy and served them. Identifying with them, he said, "I was the needy." Then they also will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison, and didn't minister to you?" Then he'll answer them, saying, "Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." And these will go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into everlasting life. The terms social gospel and social justice are an indictment of Christian extremes, those who love their neighbors but disobey God, and those who claim to love God but neglect the needy. Good deeds light up the world, and we ought to love God and our neighbour. Overpopulation, deficient distribution methods, rising costs, poor education, unemployment, underemployment, environmental degradation, individual responsibilities, medical costs, sickness, greed, the cost and devastation of war, natural disasters, industrial changes, recessions, discrimination, pregnancy out of wedlock, disability, crime and unjust incarceration, immigrant status and gang presence, all cause poverty. People without a high school diploma are 3 to 5 times more likely to be poor. Fatherless families are 3 to 4 times more likely to be poor. 2/3 of disabled people are unemployed. Domestic abuse victims are twice as likely to be unemployed. Women, minorities, children, immigrants, the disabled, and female-headed households face far greater poverty rates. Christians ought not to just blame the victim, but do something. He will bring justice to the poor of the people. He will save the children of the needy, and he'll break in pieces the oppressor. For he'll deliver the needy when he cries, the poor also, and him who has no helper. He'll spare the poor and needy, and will save the souls of the needy. He'll redeem their life from oppression and violence, and precious shall be their blood in his sight. Is caring for the needy an individual or national responsibility? The Messiah's reign is a standard for all national leaders. The weak you've not strengthened, nor have you healed those who were sick, nor bound up the broken, nor brought back what was driven away, nor sought what was lost, but with force and cruelty you've ruled them. Ezekiel condemns evil national leaders. What's our society's collective responsibility towards the needy? What kind of a barbaric society refuses to defend the poor, the life of a helpless unborn baby, or distressed and homeless immigrants? Do we see in the needy an inconvenience, or do we see Jesus? They trample helpless people in the dust and shove the oppressed out of the way. Listen to me, you fat cows living in Samaria, you women who oppress the poor and crush the needy, and who are always calling to your husbands, bring us another drink. Oppress good people by taking bribes, and deprive the poor of justice in the courts. Rob the poor and trample down the needy. Amos gives a dire warning to any nation which would trample and shove the oppressed, making excuses for greed and selfishness while the poor suffer, taking bribes and depriving the poor of justice in the courts, robbing the poor and trampling down the needy. Such nations are cursed by God. We're disappointed with human governments. Monarchs became rich and made people serfs. Democracies are hijacked by monopolies. Atheistic communist predators become billionaires. The ideologies may be different, but human systems have one thing in common: the strong bully the weak. Jesus says he'll come back and bring justice. Jesus identifies with the poor and marginalized. Do we identify with the needy as Jesus does? When we do, we've found Christ.